Hello, everyone. This is the ParaPodcast. We are back again yet with another episode where we are talking about emergency medicine. If you note, we are not saying paramedicine this time. We're saying emergency medicine. And we are taking emergency medicine from Africa to the world and then taking stuff from the world. We bring it back to Africa so that it makes sense to us. As you can note, Tulani is not with us, but we have a special co-host that we've invited, Maggie. You probably would have seen her by now in one of the episodes. You'd know about her. I'm not going to talk about her today, but we have two special guests. They are currently in Miami. When we're introducing ourselves talking, they said, "Welcome to Miami."
This the type of town I can spend a few days in Miami, the city that keeps the roof blazing. Party in the sand, really is on all night on the beach till the break of dawn.
Welcome to. It reminds me of Will Smith. I think of a beach and I think of Miami and the sand and people that are running. That is just nice and pretty. So how are you, Mike and Lara?
It's a fabulous day today in Miami. You're right. I should be at the beach. Now that you mention it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we have asked you to be with us, and you can't be at the beach.
Wi-Fi doesn't extend that far yet.
Yeah, and unfortunately. So, and Mike, how are you?
Oh, I'm fabulous. Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Thank you for visiting us at ParaPodcast. One day I was responding to a case, and when I was preparing, I read so there's an MDT. It's like a small tablet screen. It was written 8 months old, having seizures. So what we do at work, we run to our app, we look there, and then we say age, and then we see the age. And then it tells us the drugs, depending on the medication that you want. And then it tells, okay, midazolam, this is what is going to happen. So I prepared myself. And that when I arrived, it didn't look like an 8-year-old. It was bigger. And it got me thinking, what do we do in this situation? Because now they're a bit bigger. Oh. But now I need to follow the company policy. I need to do what is right there. So it brought a lot of questions. So, and the reason I'm telling this story, Mike and Lara have been involved intensively in developing a tool that has to do with measurement of weight and getting it accurate, at least close to that. And it's a project that I've been involved in for years. And so that is what we're going to talk about today. Right. So I will ask with Mike, can you tell us more about that space?
About the gap, yeah. So when I was a young doctor, it was obvious to me how poorly people treated children and how confused they got when it came to giving medications, because obviously in kids, everything is weight-based, whereas in adults, only some drugs are weight-based and most we just have a set dose. And so that led me down the path of thinking, okay, so how do we make it easy for people to give medications? And there were two sides to that. The one was have something written down that they can know the dose of the drug. And the other side, of course, was a way to estimate the weight. The Broselow tape has been around for a very, very long time. But in South Africa, the Broselow tape was enormously expensive. But also in South Africa, because most kids weren't the same size as kids in the US where it was developed, the Broselow tape wasn't very accurate. And so that led to the thinking behind creating the Pawper tape. The Pawpa actually stands for Pediatric Advanced Weight Estimation in the Emergency Room. But Pawpa was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment referring to how expensive the Broselow tape was and how we wanted to make something inexpensive that could be used in our environment. So we created a new tool that takes both the child's length as well as their body habitus into account when estimating the weight. So that we created, and it always has a companion drug dosing guide, so that once you know the weight, you can look up the drug information. And the idea is to take all the calculations out of the process. Because in an emergency, people's brains deteriorate dramatically. And so even simple calculations become very complicated and prone to error. So that was the thinking. That's why we developed the tool initially. And we've really just developed it from there.
And Lara, how do you fit in the picture?
So Prof Wells invited me to join in his research right near the beginning, actually. And he's the ideas man and I'm logistics, is how we joke about it. So with a lot of research that we've with a lot of the research that we've done, he's come up with the brilliant ideas, and then I've made it happen. But yes, it's a brilliant device that needed to be discovered, needed to be researched, and have been involved with that since the start.
Someone would say, "Wait a minute! I know that there is a way of calculating this thing." From the age of 1 to 5 years, we say weight is equal to 2 times age plus 8. And then, and then there's another one that says from 6 to 12 years, we say weight is equal to 3 times age plus 7. What's wrong with that?
So, Lawrence?
I was going to say there are many things wrong with that. I think firstly, as Mike alluded to, doing a calculation when you've got a critically ill or injured child in front of you, brain does not function. So while it might seem great, I can do this, the brain tends to switch off, and so that becomes a potential for errors in the weight calculation and then errors in the drug dosing calculation. The other issue is that all these weight estimation calculations are not accurate. And so we land up in a bit of a pickle. So even if we feel as if we've calculated something, it's not right for the child that's in front of us.
So interestingly, we've looked at lots of different formulas and evaluated them. There are more than 30 different age-based formulas for estimating weight in kids, and they are all useless. And it's obvious because you know, you have a 5-year-old and you have a 5-year-old who's tiny, and you have a 5-year-old who could be a lock in a rugby team. And so clearly age is not a good predictor of body weight. So that we know is really a very poor way of doing it.
Okay.
I want to put in a side thing. Interestingly, age can be used to estimate ideal body weight, but that's a whole nother conversation. That is for another time, maybe.
I'll tell you what I did. I took the app that we use at work, actually, and then I screenshot it, and then I put it on ChatGPT, and then I said, how did they come up with these formulas? And then it gave me this response here, that this is the formulas that they use. And it referenced PELS, I think. No, is it? Yeah, PELS. It referenced PELS. So basically, right now, you are telling us that I like the way that you write your papers too, because the tone that you come up with now, it's exactly that tone. As I was reading them, I was like, yeah, this is just bold. He says exactly what exactly he thinks. Yeah. So you're telling us now that we shouldn't really use these methods, and they have a potential of being dangerous to our pediatric patients. Yeah.
So for two reasons. The one is that they are very inaccurate and will result in very inaccurate drug doses, which is dangerous. And secondly, as Lara said, you might think it's easy to do that, but there are studies looking at doctors. I don't know about paramedics. It's actually paramedics as well, at the ability to use those formulas in an emergency. And people get it badly wrong, as much as 10 times wrong. And we see tenfold errors commonly in kids when these sort of methods are used.
Yeah, I'll remind you, Prof. Mike, there is a paper that you published with a student. I think the student's name was Lauren. I think I know her from UJ, and it was looking at paramedics. It was qualitative research. It looked at paramedics. So there is a study that talks about that. Now, for a person that says, but I am in Australia, Because if you look at most of the studies, they talk about low and middle income countries. Why target those specifically? Why not everywhere?
So it is targeted everywhere. In fact, there are some places in the US that are using it. They're using it in Italy. They're using it in some places in the UK. The biggest challenge with the tape is actually distributing it. And because we have the desire to make it inexpensive, the costs of shipping it are challenging. Although we do it for people who would like to get tapes. We do send them across the world for people to use. But it is a challenge with any cheap device. The costs of distribution are high.
Okay. So
otherwise, I think I was just going to make a comment. Yeah, no, I was just going to make a comment when he said that, obviously your brain switches off when you're in an emergency. And I think I remember there was a point I was doing a transfer. It's 3:00 in the morning. And now I have to use, 2 times age or whatever the case might be. Your brain just does not function very well, does it? Especially when it comes to drugs or you have to mix and dilute. It's an absolute nightmare. So I definitely agree. But I wanted to ask a question. Take us back to the start, so you saw this problem that actually these things are inaccurate. Where did you start to address this and actually decide, what, let's come up with this and make it inexpensive. Let's make it available for most people. And how did you sort of go about making sure that this gets approved? Where did you start sort of operating with it? You start in your unit first before you start distributing to other hospitals?
So, I mean, that's a nice question. So, I developed the idea of the tape in the early 2000s. My background is, after the first 2 years of medicine, I took 2 years off and did a BSc and a BSc honors. And part of that was studying human growth and development. And so I learned a lot about growth charts. I learned a lot about how children have different body compositions and different development. So one child is very different to another child. So I knew some of the background, and then I knew how we could adjust a length-based weight estimation because we had the Broselow tape. We knew the Broselow tape was better than anything else, but that just uses a length. And as we know, you get 2 children of the same height or the same length, and one is thin and one is fat. They have different weights. And so how did we account for that? So I knew that there was a difficult way we could do it, which was by using growth charts, but that wouldn't be suitable for emergencies. Then one day I was at the vet, taking my cat to the vet, and I saw a poster on the wall, which was how to grade your cat and your dog in terms of weight. And it was called a condition score. And a condition score of 1 would be a cat that's underweight or a dog. And a condition score of 5 or 6 or whatever it was an obese dog. And they had pictures of these dogs and cats. And so you could say, okay, my dog is a number 3, which is okay. So I thought, well, surely we can use that for people as well. I didn't want to call it a condition score. So that's where habitus score came about. And I thought, well, maybe we could measure a child's length and then look at them and say, this child's a bit underweight or this child's a bit overweight. Give them a habitus score and then just look it up on the tape and we'd be able to get a weight. And so my master's was studying the first version of the Pawper Tape in 2007. And we found that it was incredibly accurate in our population and was far better than the Broselow Tape. And so that's how it was born, was a combination of events that showed us that the system worked really well. And then from there, we've developed the tape in different directions. But it was to meet that need of accurate weight estimation to help people manage kids better. And it was just challenging that people weren't confident in managing kids. And part of it was because there was this big concern about the weight. And this addressed it, and we found people love it because it does take away some of the stress of the emergency care process.
Wow. I think I just had one follow-up question. Were you still in South Africa at the time when you developed it?
Yeah.
And how are the regulations in terms of getting it out there and getting people to use it?
South Africa doesn't have any regulations like that. it was proven by science and by publication. And in fact, it was adopted and approved by the Department of Health without us asking. And it was included in, Lara, you'll know the name better, at the My Clinic, or what was it?
The Pediatric. I've just blanked.
Yeah, but it was part of the essential list of items to have in anything designated as a clinic in South Africa. It's also endorsed by the International Federation for Emergency Medicine. And we're busy in the process of getting it approved by the FDA here in the US. But these things take a long time, as I'm sure you'll know.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, because I know, in the US, things can go for 5 to 10 years before they get approved. So I was just wondering sort of like what processes did you have to go through in South Africa? And, at the time, if there was anything, but sounds like you had good evidence and you had good ground which is being used. So it sounds like it sort of just adapted into the system and, it started being used by everyone.
And
I just... sorry, Malusi. I actually just wanted to jump on this and add to how even in med school, we were still using the weight-based formulas. You had to memorize them all the way into any anesthesia rotation. Even in pediatric rotations themselves, we were still using these weight-based formulas. And especially for emergency medicine, I know we are still in our toddler phases on the continent. It's actually very weird that we still don't have these readily available. Even when I last did my PALS, they were still advocating for the Broselow Tape. The Pawper Tape was something that I really just found out during my residency, that there's a Pawper Tape that is available and it's you can buy it online. My question is there a reason why? I understand not commercializing it so that it is readily available, especially in low middle income countries, but do you think it's been a hindrance to it being widely adopted or being widely available or more people getting to know about it?
I can comment to a certain extent on that. If we look at the way things get adopted in medicine in general, we talk about translation of findings in research to utilization in real life. And the magic number is 17 years. And so currently for things to change, there'll always be early adopters, medium adopters, and late adopters. And to get the whole body of evidence to change, and for that adoption to take place takes time. And the Pawper Tape is kind of only getting to that magic number now, compared to the Broselow that's been around. People hate change in general as well. So this is what we've always done, and this is what we've always used. Gets thrown around a lot. And sometimes evidence-based medicine gets trumped over evidence-based medicine.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
So
if you have
it
to
is
change,
one of our
Sorry, you can go ahead, Mike.
It is one of our goals in the next 2 or 3 years to make the tape more widely available as well. The Pawper Tape is now the second most studied weight estimation device in the world after the Broselow Tape.
Okay.
In every study in which the Pawper Tape has been compared against other methods, the Pawper Tape has been the most accurate. And that is from studies in Australia to the Philippines, to Italy, to the United States, to South Africa, to Rwanda. So it's been used and tested widely. We're still working on making it more accurate as well, but our ambition is to make it more widely available. At this stage, if people reach out to us and email us, we send them off. There is a setup for distribution in South Africa, but we're looking to make a more global system.
Sorry, I just wanted to put a follow-up question on. I didn't come across a study where you've looked at the challenges that people use, because as you rightly said, Lauren, people really hate change and they'll find any reason not to adopt something new because they'll be like, no, it's challenging. We don't know where to start. How do we, where in the algorithm do we put it? With the resource, everything is just very high intensity, fast paced. When do we get a chance to use the tape? tape and, just getting it out. It's always, especially with the resuscitation trolley, how everything has been standardized, but you hardly ever find the PAWPER tape as one of the things that need to be checked off. And we still have the old one. We don't have the XL or the XL Mac yet. And you know how easily those just get lost somewhere, just the same way you find like with a normal tape. I think, have you done a study to look at some of these challenges that can be addressed, and even as you are improving it, implementing how these tapes can be made more implementable in our settings?
No, we haven't, but that's a great idea. And we'll involve you in that. Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about challenges. It's one of the things that you had on the list to talk about, so let's talk about it quickly, which is the Pawpa on a page. So we did create a system. We published it in the World Journal of Emergency Medicine. We always try and publish in open access journals as well, so that there's no paywalls that people can't get hold of the articles. But we published a paper where we printed or created a PDF that people can download and print and assemble their own tapes. And we did a little study looking at how accurate people were, and people were accurate at assembling these. The problem is it's a paper tape, so you would have to put some sort of coating on it just to protect it. But that is, and we know people have used it, and we know that it is one way, but it's not an ideal way of making the tape. But that is something that we've done, and we know people have used it. And the main thing to make sure that you assemble it correctly is to measure the overall length. And if the overall length is within 1 millimeter or 2 off where it should be, then the tape is acceptable for use.
Okay.
But where we have gone now with the new, we've created now, the initial tape was paper. Then we made a card one, and there's a material called Tyvek, which is virtually indestructible. And so this is what we've used for the tape now. The little colors you see there, we used those in a WHO project, and this is to identify children who have severe acute malnutrition, and that's useful as well, because that will tell you children who we should treat differently in terms of drug dosing in emergencies as well.
Sorry,
but yeah, so there's a lot of.
I want to disturb you. I'm thinking now that there's a person who has never heard of this tool before. Maybe if you can just tell us how it works, and then you explain further, because other people have never heard of this tool. They'll be lazy to Google and look at the YouTube videos that you've had.
Yes. So the tape is literally a tape, and this we use, and we have an end that says measure from this end. And so that end gets aligned with the top of the child's head, and then the tape is stretched along the length of their body, and then we identify where their heel will cross the line or cross the tape. And that's the length segment then that we're interested in. Then the two ways that we can use the tape. The first is just by eyeballing, so looking at the child and saying they're a little bit underweight, a little bit overweight, and so on. And we talk about a habitus score of 3 as being a child who's on the 50th centile of weight for length. In other words, the average child. The problem, of course, is average in the United States is different to the average in South Sudan. And so that is a little bit subjective. But if you say the child is of average weight, we would then go and see the habitus score. Oops, upside down. That's not very clever. Habitus score of 3. And then we can read off the weight of 9 kilograms, I think it says. Yeah. And so there are no calculations involved with that. We did then divide the Pawpa X. So the XL is just longer, and it's got all the colors that match up with the Broselow Tape. In a nod to the African development of this, you'll notice that the taller segments, there's zebra stripes and giraffe spots, since we ran out of colors to use. So that's the XL is then that is up to 1.8 meters. So that's every child will fit onto this, adolescents as well. The
Even
XL
I can
Max,
fit.
So to take away some of the subjectivity and to make this more useful in populations that are very different to the average population, we added in where you can measure mid-arm circumference using the front part of the tape. So you can use this to measure the mid-arm circumference. And then in the length segment where you've measured, you can see the mid-arm circumference and then read off the weight directly. So it's also an extremely quick procedure. And the tape is designed that if you make an error of one habitus score or one length segment, it actually makes very little difference to the weight estimate. So that's a simple device. There's quite a lot of science behind how to make it useful for people, and that if you make a small error, it doesn't result in a big error of weight estimation.
Sounds good.
And then obviously the idea is that you read off the drug dose from other material.
Yeah.
I saw I saw an article that that was published in Ghana where they looked at sickle cell children with sickle cell disease and the utility of using the Pawpa, and the Pawpa still came out quite accurate. Have we with the malnourished, have we looked at other congenital conditions where it might be a little bit inaccurate, such as your Down syndrome babies?
So no, we haven't. That would be a good study to do. So the Mercy tape, which is another one of the accurate weight estimation systems, has been tested in Downs and found to be reasonably accurate. And the Pawpa and the Mercy tend to go pretty well together in terms. So if that's accurate, then it's likely that the Pawper tape would be accurate as well. What we do know is that the Pawper tape is very good in children who are underweight. So it identifies them quite successfully. What happens as children get larger, so with higher degrees of obesity, it becomes harder to distinguish between categories. And so the weight estimations become a little bit less accurate with larger and larger children. But I don't think there's any system that we've encountered to date that's going to work well in those children. And that's why we're looking at high-tech systems with 3D cameras and other such devices to improve that. But as yet, nothing works better than the Pawper tape, so at least we're happy with that.
I'm trying to think now of a paramedic who's thinking, how does this work? I could see it working. Let's say a patient has convulsions, seizures. What happens there? Do they have to pull out the tape first and measure? What do you think about that?
We actually did do a study looking at that, and utilized paramedics, as well as doctors, and we created different scenarios, for them to utilize the tape.
Is that the cats that are sick?
That's right.
They always come.
Yeah. So with that study, one of the scenarios was the patient with status epilepticus, and it was successfully used. You can't go and give the dose unless you know what the kid weighs. So you have to start with measuring the child first. What was great about using the Pawper tape as opposed to something like the Broselow is that it's a much thinner tape, and so easier to handle by one practitioner or two practitioners, as opposed to the Broselow, which is very thick and quite cumbersome to get an accurate weight on the child. Initially, one doesn't have to tailor it down to the specific body habitus. You can get just using, as Mike was saying, the habitus score 3, without measuring the mid-upper arm circumference, when you're trying to do the immediate calculation. And then once the patient has been stabilized, then measuring the mid-upper arm circumference in order to tailor the weight a bit more accurately.
Okay. Now, do you want to say something, Elias?
No. Just, I'm just thinking in a seizing patient as well. So I think obviously the mere fact that you can predict just by looking at the patient kind of makes it much easier. And also the size as well. I think I've not used it myself because none of the services that I've worked with had sort of like permission to use it or has established it. But I think it's a good tool in actual fact.
So the interesting, there's been quite a lot of work on pre-hospital management of status epilepticus. And there have been several big studies looking at different drugs, international studies, concept trial and Eclipse trial. we actually reached out to the authors to say, well, how did you estimate weight? And they said, well, we don't know. We just let people do what they wanted. And their study found there was no big difference between the drugs they were evaluating. And so our comment was, well, you don't know the dose you're giving. So how can you compare these things? We also know from other studies that if the dose of the initial benzodiazepine in a seizing patient is not accurate, the chances, and it's often underestimated and underdosed, the chance of actually successfully aborting the seizures is much less. The take-home message is it's important to get a good weight estimate. Using the Pawper Tape takes 30 seconds, so it's not going to make any real difference, especially if you have a crew of more than one. Someone can start to drop the medication while you get the weight, and that will result in far better medical treatment than a guess of the weight or anything else. So even though it's a bit counterintuitive that you don't start with the drug, it's important to get the dose right. And status epilepticus is a particularly good example of where it's really important to get that right.
It's actually very... just like anything in emergency medicine or these very intense scenarios, I think one of the things that really prepares you is simulating these kind of situations, just so that even within your own setting, whether it's in the pre-hospital setting, when you don't have that patient who is sick in front of you, you get a child and you just practice how are you going to do it, because that's how you get comfortable with these things. And it's the same with using the Pawper Tape. We still struggled. I'm sure there's still resuscitations that come in and we're like, oh yeah, we forgot to estimate the child's weight. And we're like, oh, we have a tape. So just constantly simulating it and putting it part of your drills, your resuscitation drills, makes it easier for someone to be able to remember these things. Because just like with everything, oh yeah, if you don't do that algorithm all the time, you forget that, oh, you actually have a tool to help you in these cases.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering if a person is sitting somewhere in the world and they say they want this tape, how do they get it?
Normally they end up emailing me.
Distributor.
And remember, I'm logistics.
Okay. Yeah.
So normally it's an email to me, and then depending on where they are, we make a plan.
That's actually interesting because, sorry, Prof. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're going to make it available on Amazon at some stage in the next year or so, but Amazon doesn't reach across the world either. So probably the best way is
put it on Temu. Put it on Temu. I think it will arrive.
Temu. Okay.
It will arrive this month.
Yeah. One of the challenges we have is that the production we're very demanding. When it gets printed, it has to be absolutely, absolutely perfect. And the people we have across the world printing them for us, I think, hate us because we say, well, it's a millimeter too long. We can't use it. So, there are quality. So that's why we say people must rather reach out to us and we'll send. And they'll just have to cover the cost of the package, of the posting and whatever it costs to actually make it. So we don't use this. We don't make money out of these. We sell them for what it costs us to make, and we're happy to distribute them.
And how much are they?
Yeah.
How much is it?
Yeah.
Laura,
let's say if you have to send to South Africa.
See,
Kenya.
South Africa is different at the moment because South Africa currently, we have friends that are dealing with that in South Africa and arranging for local distribution. I'm not sure the price that's being utilized for them right now. I think currently for international stuff, I think the most recent printing was about $10 per tape.
No, it's less than that. I mean, so yeah, we can get it for about.
I'd have to have
it's under $5, and then whatever it costs to.
It just ends up being. It goes up because if you work it up per tape, it goes up based on the distribution.
So I looked it up. It's about 150 to 250 rand, depending on where you see it in South Africa. Yeah, but it includes the small booklet as well, which is color coded and it's pretty. But I wanted to find out, even when with a paper on a tape, Pawper tape on a page, just to try. I wanted to see if I could print it and see if it's accurate and compare it to the one that we use in the unit. But still can't find even a PDF version of it online. So where can people find this PDF just so that they can print it?
And that was published in the World Journal of Emergency Medicine. So Pawpa on a page hyphenated in Google, I'm sure that should come up.
Yeah. It's listed on PubMed. So if you look under Pawper Tape, you should find that as well. Otherwise, people can reach out to Lara, email her, and then we'll send the PDF directly.
What's in the book? The book that you just spoke about. What do you find in the book, Prof. Mike?
So there are 3 parts to giving an accurate dose to a child in an emergency. And interestingly, they're all more or less equal. The first is an accurate weight estimation. The second is you have a weight, but now you have to convert that weight into how much you inject into the child. And so that may require drug preparation, dilution, and then you need to know the volume that you have to give. So that process is the second source of errors. The third is the actual injecting process, is how much do you inject? And there's potential for error. And the smaller the child, the greater the proportional risk of error is with that. And that's why, Maggie, what you were talking about is practice is so important, is you need to practice using the tape. You need to practice looking up the drug dose in the book or the card, and then you need to practice administering it, because the dilution process and so on is something that does take practice as well. In the reference guide, what we always have is information on this is the size syringe that you should use to draw up the drug. This is the volume of the drug. You mix it with this much saline, and this is the volume to administer. So it takes all the calculations out of the process. The problem is, as you all know, New Zealand, Australia, Namibia, different drugs, different concentrations. So that has to be done at a local level. So it has to be the drugs that your service uses, or your country or your county uses. But the principles remain the same. As long as it has all the information, then it will reduce errors.
So whose responsibility is to convert epinephrine to adrenaline? That terminology that is different per country.
Oh, well, welcome to America, where everything needs to be a little bit different.
Yeah. So did you want to ask something? I wanted to ask, is it like, will be done if I order it here in Australia? Is there someone that will convert it for me, or how does it work in terms of the terminology?
No, so the terminology. Well, the terminology in all the cards that we've made is South African, which aligns with most of the world. But it's not just that. It's not just the name of the drug. So atropine, for example, atropine is a drug that has the most different varieties of how it's presented. So you may get an ampule that's 0.5 milligrams or 0.6 milligrams or 1 milligram or 1.2 milligrams or 1.5 milligrams. So clearly, what you do in one place to the next, it will depend on what formulation you have. And to some degree, that's determined by the country that you're in. But it's also depends, it can be a local service level choice of what you have.
True, because it varies from state to state. How much of what do you give here, even here too? While I still remember, 150 rands in Australia would be about $12, something like that. It's not really expensive. Yeah. If I think about it.
The whole thing was to make it that it was not cost prohibitive. When you look at the cost of something like the Broselow tape, and so it was about cost and it was about accuracy.
And people asked us why we didn't produce a tape that's got drug doses on it, and the answer is twofold. The first is that, threefold probably. The first is that we wanted a tape that's easy to use and manipulate. And years ago, they produced a tape called the Sandal tape in the United Kingdom, which was as wide as a piece of paper. And you would lay this next to the child. But it's unwieldy. You can't use it. The second reason is that you have to provide all the information. Otherwise, it's no use. And the original Broselow tape just had the milligram dose. So you could say, I want you to give phenytoin 154 milligrams to this child as a doctor. And then the nurse goes, well, what do I do? How do I do that? Or you can get your colleague to try and work out the dose. So that just transferred the problem. The new Broselow tape has actually got more information, but still not enough. And you need to take all the calculations out of it. So that you can't have on a tape. It's just unwieldy. And the third reason is what we've just talked about is what I use here in Miami-Dade County is not the same as what they'll use in Broward County. It is not the same as what you're going to use in New Zealand or Australia or Namibia. So that has to be done at a local level. I worked with the US Army on working for some things and producing drug dose guides. And it was also a problem there is different branches of the military use different doses. So we will be happy to assist with people who are developing in different areas and guide them about what is required. But it has to be done at a local level, unfortunately.
I've had pleasure to use the Broselow tape back in South Africa. I remember. And the first time I encountered the Pawper tape was when I was working for Netcare. 911 in South Africa, they had it, but they didn't have the XL one. They had the normal one, and there was the booklet that was there to assist. So I don't remember though you being able to use it on the patients because pediatrics, they don't come all the time. So sometimes you don't get them. You only get the adult patients. Yeah. So, but now a question and then when I came here, there's no tape here. There is the calculation, and then there is the app that is used. Now it takes us to the next question. Are there any thoughts around innovation and sort of making it work in the form of an application as compared to the hard copy?
Yeah, there are. In fact, we had an app that we developed. So where I believe the app is extremely useful is in it can provide the drug dose information. And if you search for adrenaline, and it can give you all the information that you can get from a hard copy. I still like hard copies, paper copies of things, because sometimes apps don't work. And it's always nice to have a backup. But yes, it can be used for that. We looked at using an app to actually do the measurement process for estimating the weight. And we find the augmented reality measurement was not accurate enough to use a mobile phone device or mobile phone app to do the measurements that we would use for the Pawper tape. So that was not accurate. But for the drug dosing side, 100% agree that's a fabulous idea. And everyone has a mobile device that can be used for that.
Yeah.
What we are looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading online now, and it says that the augmented reality application is in process or sort of in development, and that you are working on it. So I'm just wondering if there is much to share on that and how far along you are, and
Well, the two lines that we're pursuing. The first is using a mobile camera. So many phones actually have something called LiDAR, which is a light, like a radar, but you're just using ordinary light. And that can give 3D imaging. So there are ways where you can just point your phone at a child, and it can give you a weight estimate, which could then link to an app. So that is one of the things that's on our list to look at. And then something else is using 3D cameras. So, like you would have had for the Microsoft Kinect, or the Xbox, or the Wii, those sort of 3D cameras, we can actually take the box, and that we know can estimate weight very accurately. And we've got some preliminary information in adults that is pretty accurate. But that'll be a few years before we have a system that's accurate enough. And those will take the whole process and make it automatic. So you point your device or your camera at a child, and it will tell you the dose to use without any other input from the user. So that will come, but it'll be many decades before that's available in Uganda or Rwanda or DRC or the outback in Australia. So there's always a need for low-tech, low-cost systems that perform as well as is possible.
I hope with AI it can be sped up and hopefully have it sooner than later. We're excited for the project, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's super exciting. It's that could revolutionize a lot of what we do in managing sick kids, both pre-hospital and in the hospital.
Will that be much more expensive than the current PAWPER tape, you reckon?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, just a 3D camera is between $200 and $500, or the cost of your mobile phone. And we won't be looking to make money out of it, but the things will cost more, of course, as anything in medicine does.
I think there are a lot of studies that you find around this this tape and this tool. Actually, one of how the conversation was sparked was we were talking to our colleague who is in the UK. She's a lecturer there. She's doing her master's, Emmy, and she was doing research in terms of the tools to measure. And she was talking about it, that it's one of the most accurate ones. She might be biased because she's South African. but it's actually true. That is where we are at the moment. Now, in terms of the future studies, I want you to think of if anyone that is watching this and they want to understand it better, or to make it understood better, or to assist or support its adaptation and integration to their healthcare systems, what kind of studies would you think of or recommend?
So I think what's important is obviously to know it's accurate in the population that it's going to be used in. We've got many of those studies already, but the more we get, the better it would be. In the countries like the USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, not less so, but it's important to look at the performance of the tape in children with obesity as well, in particular, because we know that obesity is so common across the world now, and even in low middle income countries, obesity is the problem. I mean, South Africa is a good example, but elsewhere in Africa as well, lots of obese adults and children. We still need ways of working out how to make it accurate in those kids. So that's certainly one of the studies I'm working on at the moment, is making it a bit more accurate in those kids. But that's something that other people could do as well. The other thing is ways of, Maggie, as you mentioned, breaking the barriers, or identifying and then breaking the barriers to having it used. And then the best way of training. How much training does it need? Although we have an idea and we've got some data on how much training it requires. In any environment, there are different things that are important. In the World Health Organization project in Uganda that we are assisting with, they're using the Pawper Tape to guide mass drug dosing campaigns for schistosomiasis. We've identified new problems in the training there, where we have a train the trainer program, and there's a breakdown in the process from where the trainer then trains the final end user. So information on that is always useful. On any product, things are different in each environment where they're used, and getting that sort of data would be fabulous. But yeah, we'd be very happy to assist people with ideas and how to implement studies like that, because the more that can be studied, the better the project or the product will become.
I wanted, sorry, Lucy, I wanted to find out, have you been approached by the AHA or the European Research Council to get it integrated into their, into the PALS algorithm, etc.?
So there's the long story. And Lara's 17-year comment comes in here. So in fact, it is mentioned by the European Resuscitation Council. They mention the Pawpa by name, saying that age and length-based, length and habitus-based systems are more accurate. So interestingly, just to quickly divert the two best length and habitus-based systems are the Pawper Tape and the Mercy method. That we know. And those are both very accurate. And I would use either without any hesitation. So it is mentioned in the European Resuscitation Council. I'm currently busy with ILCOR, so it's the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation, which is the organization from which the ERC and the AHA get their guidelines. We're looking at weight estimation, and the big battle I'm having with them is they still regard the Broselow Tape as the gold standard. So in their research question, it is, how does the Broselow Tape compare to anything else? And I've been saying to them for ages, that's the wrong question to be asking. But we are busy with it, and we're coming to the end of the paper, and hopefully it's going to be published sometime this year, where it will be more clear that the evidence supporting length-based tapes like the Broselow Tape is very slim indeed. And so I'm hoping it will be adapted. I need to get the Pawper Tape approved by the FDA before anyone like the AHA would look at it. And that's why I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that this year. And that will give it a bit more standing. It doesn't actually mean much in reality, but it will give it a stamp of approval internationally for that as well. And I think there's enough evidence now across the world in different environments that we'll be able to get that fairly easily. Right. But the thing that actually is a bit annoying for me as an academic is the evidence supporting the Broselow Tape is extraordinarily flimsy. If you look at the studies that have evaluated the Broselow Tape for improving drug doses, there are almost no studies that have done that. And almost all of those studies have used the Broselow Tape where people have additional dosing guides as well. So they actually just use the Broselow Tape for the weight estimation, and then they read on their app or a card the dosing information. So the value of the Broselow Tape is vastly inflated. And even though it's been around since 1988, there just has been so little work done on it. That's why there is a desperate need for people to look at, or in future research, like, do the tapes actually make a difference to outcomes? We think they do, but we don't know for sure. And that would be really good information to get as well. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. I just had a follow-up question to that. And I know you are not trying to commercialize it and you want to make it as affordable or as easily accessible to everyone. But have you considered having like I know Broselow has resuscitation trolleys that are according to the weight base that you're just able to pull it out. Have you been approached by any organization, or have you thought of doing something similar?
I just mentioned extraordinary flimsy evidence. So if you look at the equipment, the evidence behind sizes of equipment and length has never been done. So in the Broselow groups, there's no evidence to support anything there except endotracheal tubes. And until the most recent version of the Broselow Tape, they didn't even acknowledge that we should be using cuff tubes. So we do know that cuff tubes and uncuffed tubes for that matter are better predicted by length than anything else. But that's really the only thing that's of proven value to have in those Broselow bags or carts or anything. So the answer is no, we haven't pursued it because there's really no evidence to do that. I know they are useful and they do help people, but you could pretty much make your own system there based on common sense, and that would be as accurate as long as it's done beforehand. Because as we said, in an emergency, your brain goes to a grade 5 level and you can't think. So you need something where you don't have to think.
Yeah, pretty cool. I was wondering if I were to tell my clinical department that there is this tape that I know of, and I actually know the person that discovered this tool, and I actually have a video with them. They will ask if there's any form of training that you guys would recommend for them to implement it as part of the system. What form of support that you offer around that space?
Yeah, so we know pretty much what sort of training is required, and how long it takes. And the answer is it doesn't take long. It takes 15 or 20 minutes to train someone. The most important thing is training them while watching them use the tape to ensure that they use it correctly. And that process is very quick and easy. And we are very happy to assist with guiding people how to set up programs for training.
There's also obviously videos on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. Which we have on how to use the tapes. Yeah.
All right. Is there anyone with another question before I round up?
I feel like Maggie has quite a few. She has like a few of them written down there.
No,
because she wants to know. The whole department will start using it. Do everyone else use it? I mean, the public hospital, do they actually use it in Namibia, or is it just the private ones?
So it's mostly I think it's mostly the people who have done pediatric advanced life support who are exposed, especially in South Africa, because again, if you do it in South Africa, there's always the mention of the Pawper Tape, because many people can't afford the Broselow Tape. So there's always the alternative of the Pawper Tape. And if you are in the course in South Africa, you'll easily be able to get it. And like, I just took like 5 of them. I'm like, can we just get them quickly? And we have quite a few. It's only with this podcast that I actually got to realize we have the XL and the XL Max. So we'll have to get the updated version of it. But in Namibia, I know the emergency physicians are aware of it, but it's mostly in private. I actually have to find out if they're using it in the state as much. But yes, we need a little bit more advocacy around it in the Namibian setting. And again, pediatric emergency medicine it really needs to gain traction, just like with everything else. And this is one of the tools that really must come out there. So I don't know in the pre-hospital space how commonly you guys get to see it.
I have not worked in Namibia in a while, so I can't really comment, but we'll probably have to speak to Paulus about it. I'm just thinking that you could be a young distributor out there and probably advocate for the tape. Just, all the trainings and all the meetings that you'll be having, I think it's a good one. It's not often that, the alternative, which is the cheapest, would be better at predicting something as compared to, the one that is expensive and has been around for years. So I think, share the word, and I hope everyone starts using it. I think that's my last comment, Malusi. I know we're just heading out to the hour.
Yeah. And there's a lot of papers published on this. I think I read about maybe 5 or 6 in preparation for this. The only one in ones that Tulani sent us was 45 pages. It was a literature review. I couldn't read that. It was too long.
It was long.
That's why they invented an abstract.
Yeah. It was too long. It had no. And the literature review, sometimes the page would go this way and then it would go that way, and then like, no, I can't read like that.
Okay. No, I think with many things on the African continent, people are very innovative and they have thought of all of these ways to be able to get around problems, but they are not easily accessible. And that's why I came up with Emergency Medicine Africa, like with the ParaPodcast. This was like a gem that I found, and it's not easily accessible because it's not something that you will find on Google page 1 when you search it. It's probably Google page 5 or 6. And I would really
20.
want this to, or maybe 20. Yeah. So I think especially on the continent, we need to start becoming more digitally literate to be able to get, for example, this would do great as a website on its own, with the videos, because when I went to Google Mike Wells on YouTube, there's like so many other Mike Wellses that came up and like a pastor Mike Wells. But if there's like a dedicated website with the literature, with the video, with people using it in their own settings, testimonies, and also people, this is how you create a platform and a forum for people to be able to give suggestions, and people are also able to say, oh, let me see how I can study this within my own setting. So maybe just a recommendation, because this is a really great innovation that can be utilized in so many settings. It's just that many people don't know about it unless they do a course in pediatric or in the South African space. So maybe just an idea to consider.
logistics. What do you say about that?
I'm working on it. It's on my to-do list. I got you.
So what we will probably do is the irony, as you mentioned, is it's inexpensive, and that's actually a barrier. If we were to sell this for $100, we could advertise. So what we're probably going to try and do is set up so we sell it in the US once it's FDA approved at a price to make money. And then we can distribute it, obviously, still at cost price in countries where they can't afford it. But that may be a way of addressing it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Fiji and all other countries, the other islands that are closer to Australia, where they are developing countries. I think, yeah,
those countries are interesting. Actually, you think of Fiji and some of the Pacific Islands, and obesity is a big problem there as well. You wouldn't have thought it, and that's why systems that take habitus into account for weight estimation are even more important.
Yeah. All right. Look. We can talk. We do talk. That is what we do at the ParaPodcast. I would like to thank you, Dr. Lara and Mike, for coming and being with us. It is an honor. It is an honor that you came and you discussed this with us. And I do hope that it assists a lot of people in terms of being progressive in how they manage pediatric patients and giving them fair chances with giving them the correct doses for medication, and assisting them when they are ill. I am going to share this with my colleagues and other doctors that I know, and I do hope that it lands well, and the clinical departments, they can see this and take this on as one of their developments. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on your show.
I was just going to say that, it's not often that you speak to the inventors and the developers of a medical device, so absolutely having you guys here is absolutely amazing. I'm going to share this with all my students to say that, hey, I actually told them today that I was going to speak to you. Yeah, that's it. I was going to speak to them. So I was pretty excited about it. So I'm definitely going to show them. And thank you guys for coming, because it's always difficult. I think up to date, we're still trying to find someone to chat to about ECMO. So Mike and Lara, in case you guys have
Lara.
Yeah. Exactly. So there we go. So we are trying to.
She's an intensivist, so critical care specialist. She knows all about that.
Yeah, so definitely.
You're coming back here.
Because it's an area that we're really trying to, dive into and have the conversation and see, what are you guys doing? How can we best prepare ourselves in terms of knowledge, especially in the pre-hospital setting? Every now and then you might have to transfer a patient that's on ECMO, and how can you just know what the team is doing? And, instead of just standing in the corner and, being like a driver and so forth, but being really involved. So, I think that's a space we want to tap into. So, Dr. Lara, if you don't mind, please do come back.
We'll talk after this. She's turning red. Look at her. Oh, I love my skin.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Maggie. Unless you have any last words.
So again, I just want to echo what Elias and Malusi said. Genuinely an honor to have both of you, and also just for me to be on this platform. And I did tell my unit manager today, I'm going to, because I took out the tapes, it's just that I forgot them, and I was like, I'm going to speak to the inventors today. And it really just speaks to how innovation needs to continue being driven here on the continent, and it's making such a big difference. And even for me, I really want to testify that it's really, really been helpful to be able to use it in our settings, and truly keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of ParaPodcast. Cheers.